welcome to another episode of Literary Gladiators, the show where we discuss and debate literature in all of its forms. If it's written work, it's game. Let's meet the panel.
Hi, I'm Larry.
I'm Kaila.
I'm Ari.
And I'm Josh. And Ari, it's great to have you back after being out for a few months. How does it feel to be back?
It feels like I haven't left.
That's good to hear. We always enjoy having you on the panel.
Thank you.
So today we are going to be going over a classic poem, probably Emily Dickinson's most recognizable poem, one that is often anthologized. It's even many of us are introduced to it in school. For me, it was high school, but people can be introduced as soon as
I found about this one from my mom. I don't think I went over this one in school.
Okay. On what occasion did your mom bring it up?
Well, actually, I think I was very young when she brought this up. But I think it was probably, if I had to make a guess, it was probably after a Shiva or something.
Okay.
If I had to make a guess.
This particular poem pertains to Emily Dickinson's view on death. Which
Mom's not really a huge poetry fan, but I'm pretty sure she's the one that introduced this particular poem to me.
Okay.
So maybe she likes Emily Dickinson.
Okay. Did you have a discussion starter?
Do I have it? Am I?
I have a discussion starter.
Well, I mean, I have some ideas.
You can definitely.
But
you're welcome to ask.
I'll ping pong off you.
Okay. My discussion starter is.
Do you have a paddle?
No.
Oh man.
Do you have a paddle, Larry?
No, I'm paddle free today.
Paddle free.
Just today.
Dominica, do you have a paddle?
Nope.
Nobody that you're nobody you plan to spank?
Okay, we're taking that. We're editing that out. We are editing it out.
What is happening to this show?
That is
Falling into madness.
That's what happens when Larry moves out of shot. But that's why Larry hasn't been moving out of shot this season. That and the fact that we moved the seats a little bit. But the discussion starter we have for this is, how do you see death being depicted in this poem? Do you believe its portrayal is accurate?
That actually is a very good question, and I think that it really, for me, it depends on, I think everyone here might have a different opinion, and I think it's because it's such a broad subject. But I can tell you that when I read this poem for years, I've always thought of in the way how death, for I could not stop for death, the death would come for me. Usually that is a good description, but to kind of see the rest of the poem kind of talks about going. I think it said, was it horses? I can't remember.
Yeah, there's horses.
Yeah,
it's a carriage. Yeah. So as the carriage goes by, you kind of see all these things around you. It's almost as if you're getting a second look at things. Do you know the song? What's it called? Big Yellow Taxi.
Yes, Joni Mitchell.
Right. So there's the paved paradise and put up the parking lot line, which basically is the whole thing is basically saying that it's you don't know what you have until it's already gone. So I've always kind of linked these two.
It's more of an environmental song.
I know. I was more talking about that one quote though, where it's kind of like you have life, and then like you're able to see it from like behind. You didn't. In some cases, if you feel you've wasted your life, you don't know what you had until then you go back and look at it for eternity. It's a little different, but.
I don't know if it's about regret more so than it is about embracing and coming to terms, where death is a neutral figure. Death is not an antagonist like people fear death being. Death is not vengeful. Death does not have particular people in mind because of a particular bias. The fact that death kindly stopped for her, I think that pretty much is the neutral element where a compromise is created. Because to her, the fact that going from someone that would be fearful and vengeful to someone that is more neutral is an overwhelming improvement.
And that's assuming they were vengeful in the first place, which we don't have that information.
Death is death. Instead of a rapid, intense experience, it's more of a stroll. Gives you that opportunity to recollect everything that you did in life. Like in Richard Matheson's What Dreams May Come, we went over that in season 7. When the central character in that piece died, he didn't leave right away. He was still on Earth, but not in a way that he was present to other people, and there was a sense of recollection before he ultimately went up to the other world.
There are a couple Twilight Zones like that as well. I can't really pick them off immediately, but
The portrayal brought me a mind of our town. The way that handles death and how they're all kind of like just sitting there in their graves, but they're able to
Like
ponder.
the Thornton Wilder play?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but to me, what I think that she is getting at is the nature of the eternal, where she sees the horse is pointed toward eternity, and then the journey from the kids playing at recess to the grave, and then beyond. You know, it seems like a blink of an eye when compared to eternity.
She said centuries feels like
A couple of days.
yeah.
A couple.
But
Yeah.
that's kind of like why I kind of think that it's like, maybe it's not regret, but it's like kind of looking through the lens backwards, you know? Like you go through your life and you're seeing things that are happening now, but they remind you of things as you're slowly, you know, going on your journey. It kind of reminds you of things that happened before. And then eventually you just keep going and, you know, then you become content. So there's not, you know, there's not as much to say. It's just the journey at that point, if you even want to call it a journey, because usually the journey is something to somewhere. I guess a ride.
And I mean the fact that she the journey's to eternity. That's pretty much it's an ongoing journey,
Right. It
Never
never
ending.
ends.
which
A
in a way
never-ending story by
it's-
Michael End.
That was a great book. If you're looking at the fact that death in itself is an eternal dream, but it also depends on how you view life and the individual.
Pull a little bit of a Trevor here, but I wonder what George Harrison would think about a poem like this. Because I know that George Harrison's one of those people who always used to think about reincarnation.
Most of the John Lennon for sure was because he made mention of the fact that he doesn't believe in death. It's just
Instant karma.
just going getting out of one car and going into another.
That'd be a fascinating thing too.
Yeah, that kind of smooth transition is definitely at play here, right? Like, you get the sense that before she even realizes what's happening, that, you know, she's
Off in the carriage to eternity.
yeah, and you know, like, and then how she sees her grave as a house at first, and then realizes that it's a grave, right, where it's underground. You know, and you can't see the roof. You can't hardly see the roof, and then, you know, of course, if it would be an open grave, you wouldn't see a roof. There wouldn't be one. You know, so, and also how naked, too, the way that it seems like, or near naked, the way that she's describing the way that she's dressed and for the cold and all that. And it just seems like these things are just dawning on her, but there's a permanence to it, too, you know. And so,
It's almost as like she's awake and conscious during the period between when she dies and after she's been buried for a couple of weeks. Like, imagine like what Larry's kind of saying about how, like, oh, you go in the grave, there's no roof, and then like usually people, at least, yeah, I don't want to go crossroads in here, but at least in Judaism you put the dirt on people, and then like they kind of just you bury them and they sit there. But like there's also a process where the day before the funeral, you have a family member sit with the deceased for 24 hours. So there's maybe that kind of spiritual journey as well. So perhaps maybe it's like, imagine the carriage is like the last remnants of consciousness before someone goes into the eternal darkness. Well, not darkness, but you know what I guess darkness isn't the right word, but
Because it starts out
eternity.
The poem starts out relatively graceful, and then it turns into something a bit darker. And but she uses a lot of words that were current for that time, and that time was the 1860s.
Did you read?
yeah, I use a dictionary for
Yeah, I had
pretty
to-
much every word in one of the stanzas.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Stanza, it would be stanza 4.
Yeah, was
And-
it Tillet and
No,
Toll?
Tippett and Toll.
Tippett, Toll,
yeah.
Gossamer, and Cornice.
So did you only read this one?
I read this poem, yes. I didn't read any other version.
Okay, because I also, just for fun, I read the newer version. It's a little shorter, there's a couple lines missing, and it's much more modernistic and clear.
I like to read I like to read as
I
close to the
appreciated the older one better. I just wanted to read it just to see what it was like.
So what, she had 2 drafts? Is that what happened?
No, this was, I
They modernized
think
it.
it was modernized for easier read, I think, but I prefer the older one, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm always an unabridged kind of guy.
I kind of got like I guess like a more hopeful approach from it, like you had originally said. You know, life ends and then you're just kind of looking at eternity. And to me, it wasn't. You know, she's on a nice, easy carriage ride into eternity. You know, it wasn't like.
A roller coaster.
Yeah, it wasn't sad or scary or anything. It was just, it is what it is.
Yep,
and
that
onwards
is,
we go.
yeah. And yeah, I think it was a sense of relief that the speaker felt this way. When it turned out not being as bad and as horrifying as she thought it would be.
You know,
Right.
I'm not sure there were many emotions mentioned in the whole poem in general.
Emily Dickinson, to me, comes off as being somebody that doesn't display as much emotion.
And that's why I personally like Emily Dickinson. Well, I like my 2 favorite poets are Frost and Dickinson. I think my
They're
favorite
2 of the best,
is
too.
Dickinson. I think I like Dickinson a lot because she's able to portray emotion without saying what emotions he's feeling. She's showing you what you want to hear, what is going on, and having you be like there and feel the emotion there, rather than telling you, "Oh, I felt really sad when I went into the carriage. I can't seem to find a word that rhymes other than cabbage." See, it doesn't work.
It wasn't rhymey, but it was it had
A flow.
it had a flow, it
Yeah.
had a tune to it.
Yeah.
But
And I agree with your assessment. I think like it makes you feel very content and like
At ease.
at ease. That's a good way to put it without stating that.
Dickinson's poems tend to do that. Like they're really they're really, you know exactly what she's saying, even though there's a lot of complicated things that is written down. And that's why I appreciate her stuff.
I agree.
And this is one of my favorites. I still don't think I'm gonna ever eat cabbage.
Cabbage is good for you.
Yeah, I know.
Your wordplay with carriage and whatnot.
You're right up there. Right up there with Dickinson.
If you're interested in reading this and every other poem that Emily Dickinson has written, here is the complete poems of Emily Dickinson, edited by Thomas H. Johnson.
I'm curious where you got that.
Barnes & Noble.
Ah, okay.
Be sure to join us next time for another episode of Literary Gladiators. For now,
Keep
reading.
reading.
I'm Kaila from Literary Gladiators, and join us next week as Larry, Brian, Josh, and I discuss the unnecessary parts of a story by Adam Troy Castro. If you like what we produce here, then please support us on Patreon so we can bring you better and more content. And don't forget to check me out on my podcast, Drunk in the Library.